येनाक्षरसमाम्नायम् अधिगम्य महेश्वरात् कृत्स्नं व्याकरणं प्रोक्तं तस्मै पाणिनये नमः। वाक्यकारं वररुचिं भाष्यकारं पतञ्जलिं पाणिनिं सूत्रकारं च प्रणतोऽस्मि मुनित्रयं। नत्वा सरस्वतीं देवीं शुद्धां गुण्यां करोम्यहं पाणिनीयप्रवेशाय लघुसिद्धान्तकौमुदीम्। पूर्वस्मिन् पाठे अयुण् ऋलुक् एयोङ् अयौच् हयवरट् इति यावत् अधीतम्। आदौ पृच्छामि प्रश्नाः सन्ति अस्मिन् विषये तर्हि तेषाम् उत्तराणि ददामि, तदनन्तरम् अग्रे सरामः। So those of you who have questions, you can ask right now. So Urandraparaha is not a Sandhi related sutram at all. So Iko Yanachi is a sutram that directly conflicts with Akasavarani Dirgha. Akasavarani Dirgha is defined as an apavada of Iko Yanachi.
Satyam.
Therefore, in case of E plus E, Iko Yanachi is blocked by Akasavarani Dirgha. Urandraparaha is a completely different sutram. It does not talk about sandhis at all. All that it says is that rukarasya sthane a I u u vidhiyate chet raparaha bhavati. Urandraparaha finds its applications in hundreds of other places. For example, ruta idhatoho, through becomes tira. So e gets converted to ir. R comes over there.
अस्तु.
Okay. Savarna dirghe krute api tadrusham bhavitum arhati. So you can have urand raparaha even in upadhayascha. Kruta becomes kirta, right? So urand raparaha is an independent sutram. Whether savarna dirgha applies or whether guna applies or whatever, as soon as a ru is replaced by any of a e u, the that entity will be followed by ra. Second answer to your question is that these sutras are not conflicting at all. So when you have ru plus ru, till the time you do savarna dirgha, you don't have a rukara, dirgha rukara replacing the rasva rukara. So only after the savarna dirgha is done, there is a scope of urandraparaha. You understand what I'm saying? So they are not yugapat sutras. It's not possible for them to conflict. अग्रिमं शिवसूत्रमस्ति लण इति। लण इत्यस्य णकारेण त्रयः प्रत्याहारः। ल इत्येकं वर्णम् उपदिश्य पूर्वांश्च अन्ते णकारम् इतं करोति प्रत्याहारार्थं तस्य ग्रहणं भवति त्रिभिः. So we have अण प्रत्याहार, इण प्रत्याहार and यण प्रत्याहार. तत्र अण प्रत्याहारस्य विषये किं ज्ञातव्यं? तत्र शिवसूत्रेषु णकारस्य द्विवारं स्थापनं कृतमस्ति. E una, that ana is used for most of the ana pratyaharas. There is only one ana pratyahara which is used in anudit savarnasya cha pratyayah. This ana pratyahara is defined using the paranakara. So urandraparaha, dhralope purvasya dirghonah, kenah, anopragruhyasya anunasikah. All other sutras go for the previous anakara, but anudit savarnasya cha pratyaya goes for the next anakara. Anybody can tell me why?
Yeah, so that whether even for the alphabets like R, L, A, I, they will go where the all the Udata, Anudata, Swarata, Hrisva, Dirgha, all
So
that.
what does anudit savarnasya cha pratyaya actually do? This is crucial because I'm not sure everybody
Uh,
understands this.
the letter when we say that includes all the 18 varieties of like
Very good.
Hrisva, Dirgha, Plita,
Very good.
and Udata,
Very good.
Anudata,
So what is
Swarata.
that process called? That process is called Savarna Grahanam.
Savarna,
So
Savarna Grahanam.
Grahanam. So we have two important processes. There is something called as Savarna Vidhanam and there is something called as Savarna Grahanam. Which sutram does the Savarna Vidhanam?
तुल्यस्य प्रयत्नं सवर्णं
Correct. Tulyasya prayatnam savarnam. Which sutra does the savarna grahanam? Anudit savarnasya cha pratyaya. So tulyasya prayatnam savarnam ityanena kimuchyate? whether two letters are savarnas or not. That is the only piece of information that is given by Tulyasya Pratnam Savarnam. Anudit Savarnasya Cha Pratyaya tells us to bring the savarnas along with an original entity. So, a ityanena savarnanam grahanam bhavati, e ityanena savarnanam grahanam bhavati, and so on. So, Anudit Savarnasya Cha Pratyayah ityatra paranakaraha kimartham avashyaka iti chet, as we rightly got the answer, other than a, e, and u, there are other letters that will bring the savarna. Ru will bring the savarna. More interestingly, the initial vyanjanas that you have in that list, ha, ya, va, ra, and la, there are also some members that have to bring their savarnas. Otherwise, he could have said achudit savarnasya cha pratyaya. If the savarna was only the problem for the swaras, he could have said achudit savarnasya. But he says anudit savarnasya. So this extra spanning across the two sutras, Hayavarat and Land, is for ya, va, and la. Yavalanam api savarnaha santi anunasika yakaraha, anunasika vakaraha, anunasika lakaraha. So sanyama, sama plus yama, ityatra. How do you write that? You write a anunasika yakara followed by another yakara, right? Sanyama. So अनुस्वारस्य यही परसवर्ण इत्यनेन वा पदान्तस्य इत्यनेन परसवर्णे कृते तत्र अनुनासिक यकारः सवर्णरूपेण आगच्छति. So you have anunasika ya, anunasika va, and anunasika la. H and r do not have the savarnas. So h and r just get included for no reason because they sit somewhere in between. You have to extend it all the way till lana because of extra la present in that sutram, which needs to be included in anudit savarnasya cha pratyaya. Okay, so it has been extended till the next sutram. Therefore, ana ityasmin pratyahare sarve swaraha अन्तस्थः य व ल र एंड हकारः अस्य प्रयोगः केवलम् एकस्मिन् एव सूत्रे अणुदित्सवर्णस्य च प्रत्ययः. The next is ina, which is everything of ana except for the initial a. So अष्टाध्याय्यां यत्र यत्र इण इति उच्यते तत्र तत्र सर्वत्र परेण नकारेण एव प्रयोगः. Technically speaking, ina can also be created using the first nakara because there is a e una. So that would mean e and u. But Panini never does it. He always uses ina to refer to a bigger group starting from e up to lana ityasyana. So you have inaha shaha, inakoho, inashvidham lunglitam dhongat, and so on. There are a few sutras. अन्ते अस्ति यण इति इग्यण संप्रसारणम इको यणचि एतादृशेषु सूत्रेषु अस्य प्रयोगः कृतः दृश्यते. सो लण इत्यत्र इत्यस्य शिवसूत्रस्य किं प्रयोजनं? नाउ इट्स इजी टू अंडरस्टैंड. यण इति प्रत्याहारः अस्ति, इको यणचि इत्यत्र 1 to 1 मैपिंग भवेत्, अतः ही हैज टू एंड एट यण. Another example or another reason, anudit savarnasya cha pratyaya, the savarna grahanam has to end at l. You do not want the other letters to do the savarna grahanam, so it has to end. So there are multiple examples. This is an easy case. A more difficult question on this sutram is किमर्थं पुनरेकवारं णकारस्यैव तत्र स्थापना कृता अस्ति. अयुण, रुलुक, एयोंग, अयौच, हयवरट, again लन. Why does Panini use two nakaras one after another, first in the first Shiva Sutra, then in the sixth Shiva Sutra? And this question has been asked by Patanjali also. I don't think I have that on the website, but this question has been asked by Patanjali also in some part of Mahabhashya in the Pratyaharannika, and the exact statement that he uses is Kim punaha varnotsatau iva ayam nakaraha dvihi anubadhyate. Varnotsatti is all varnas have been dead, no more varnas are available. So is it as if Panini did not have any more varnas as is at his possession, so he is forced to reuse the nakara? So one could have used nakara instead of nakara. So ayun ruluk ayong ayuch hayavarat lan iti prayena vadamaha. So then we never really know the reason why Panini used it. So we have to rely to Bhashya, and Bhashya does give some kind of explanation about this particular recurrence of Nakara. And this information has also been captured by Nagesha in Paribhashendu Shekhara right in the very first Paribhasha. So Paribhashendu Shekhara is a book, one of the very complex, extremely difficult books in Vyakarana Shastra that lists out some of the important paribhashas used in the Vyakarana Shastra. Paribhashas are certain rules, meta rules. They will talk about interaction between the sutras, when a sutra should be used, when a sutra should not be used, and so on. Now, you all are familiar with some paribhashas. You have studied some of the paribhashas in the introductory Laghu Siddhanta Kaumudi classes, but there are many, many more. There are of the order of 500 different paribhashas. Nagesha does not collect all of them. He collects only handful of 130, 140 of them. In his Paribhashendu Shekhara Grantha, Nagesha actually opens up with this paribhasha. So the very first paribhasha in Paribhashendu Shekhara, we have this on the website. So the very first paribhasha in the Paribhashendu Shekhara exactly opens up with this question: Nanu Lana Ayuna Sutrayoho Nakara Dvayasya Upadanena तत्रापि ण अस्ति अत्रापि ण अस्ति उभयत्र ण अस्ति तर्हि अण इति वदामि चेत् सन्देहः इज इट अयुण or is it the whole thing ina iti vadami chet sandeha is it just the small ina or a big ina so that's the problem that he poses nanu lana ayuna sutrayoho णकार द्वयस्य एव उपादानेन ana ina grahaneshu. This is a whole sandhi that I'm breaking. Ana ina grahaneshu. Other pratyaharas will not give any problem. Ana ina grahaneshu sandehat. There will be a problem in determining ana ina anirnayatah, and therefore you will end up in not deciding a proper answer. Anirnayatah. When posed with such a problem, remember. So when you are posed with such a problem that ana and ina, which of them have to be resolved in what manner, and one might actually think exactly what Bhashyakara has said, that did Panini really understand what he was doing? Maybe he made a mistake all the way in the beginning while constructing the Shiva Sutras. He might have made thousands of such mistakes in creating Ashtadhyayi. So why should we even study and rely on Ashtadhyayi if there is such an obvious mistake all the way in the beginning of study in the Shiva Sutras? So the Sandeha can be of two types. The Sandeha can be on the actual technical matter, अण इत्यस्य कः अर्थः इण इत्यस्य कः अर्थः or the sandeha can be on a different level, questioning the authority of the person who wrote all these things. So at different levels the sandeha can occur, and so he says nanu lana ai un sutrayoho nakaradvayasya eva upadanena anen grahaneshu sandehat anirnayah at ah व्याख्यानतो विशेष प्रतिपत्तिः नहि संदेहाद लक्षणम्. The first paribhasha of Paribhashendu Shekhara, this paribhasha, the summary is that Panini has purposely put an akara over there so as to confuse us, so as to teach us a lesson that anytime you are confused, do not think that I don't know, but go to the commentaries and learn the answer on your own. The importance of commentaries in the Vyakarana Shastra have been forcefully justified by Panini, not by saying that commentaries are important, but by a more appealing manner, by purposefully making a kind of mistake or ambiguity in the sutras, thereby forcing us to go to the commentaries and putting that habit in us right all the way at the beginning, even before Vridhiradaj is taught. So, Vyakhyanataha Vishesha Pratipattihi. Vishesha Pratipatti. Vishesha is opposite of Sandeha. Sandeha tatra idam no chet idam iti samshayah asti. Tasya nirakaranam. Which specific answer is there? That answer is from the Vyakhyana. Vyakhyanato Vishesha Pratipattihi nahi sandehad. When you have a sandeha, it does not mean alakshana. Alakshana means uselessness of the Shastra. So just because you have a doubt on Shastra does not mean Shastra is wrong. Just because you have a doubt on Shastra does not mean Shastra is useless. So one should not randomly look at something based on our half knowledge and jump to a conclusion that Panini did not understand, or Panini was incorrect, or Panini might have made a mistake or something like that. So व्याख्यानतो विशेष प्रतिपत्तिः नहि सन्देहाद् अलक्षणम्. So अग्रे किञ्चित् विवरणम् अपि पश्यामः. असंदिग्ध अनुष्ठान सिद्ध्यर्थे असंदिग्ध अनुष्ठान सिद्ध्यर्थे अत्र शास्त्रे संदिग्ध उच्चारण रूपाचार्य व्यवहारः. In order to tell us that the Shastra is unambiguous, Panini explicitly makes it ambiguous. That is the meaning of this particular statement. Asandigdha anusthana siddhi. Asandigdha is doubtless. Anusthana, the karya that you're doing, the karya that you're doing or that he has done is completely doubtless, is completely beyond error. In order to justify this point, Panini himself makes a kind of confusing occurrence, I una and lana, repetition of nakara over there. So asandigdha anusthana siddhyarthe atra shastre sandigdha uchcharana रूपाचार्य व्यवहारः. आचार्यस्य व्यवहारः कथम् अस्ति? संदिग्धरूपेण सः उच्चारणं करोति. अनेन व्यवहारेण सः किं ज्ञाप्यति? शास्त्रे यत्र यत्र सन्देहः भवेत् तत्र तत्र व्याख्यानस्य अनुसरणं करणीयं. व्याख्याने तस्य उत्तरम् अन्वेषणीयं. व्याख्यानं दृष्ट्वा सन्देहस्य निश्चयः, सन्देहस्य उत्तरं प्राप्तव्यम्. And therefore, तेन, after referring to the Vyakhyanas, when you read Mahabhashya, when you read other Vyakhyanas, Anudit Savarnasya ityetat parihaya, except for the Anudit Savarnasya, Anyatra Sarvatra Purvena Anagrahanam. इति लण सूत्रस्य भाष्ये स्पष्टम्. सो लण सूत्रस्य भाष्ये भाष्यकारेण लण इति सूत्रम् उक्तमस्ति. तस्य सूत्रस्य भाष्ये भाष्यकारेण अयं विषयः स्पष्टीकृतः अस्ति. अतः व्याख्यानतो विशेषप्रतिपत्तिर्न हि सन्देहादलक्षणम् इत्यनेन किमुच्यते? व्याख्यानानि द्रष्टव्यानि. So you can see Vyakhyanas, you can see Bhashya, you can see Kashika, you can see Kaumudi. If you look at the Vyakhyanas, you will understand that the n of anudit savarnasya cha pratyah is a paranakara. The n of urandraparaha, kenaha and other sutras is purvanakara. This is how the doubt resolution should happen. Now, while studying Ashtadhyayi, you will get hundreds and thousands of millions of places where you are going to get such doubt. This is exactly how the doubt resolution should happen. This is a very crucial lesson that has been taught all the way before the first Shiva Sutra has been told. Okay, so there are a bunch of questions over here. How would Panini know that commentaries would be made on Ashtadhyayi in future? Anybody wants to take a shot at this?
Dirgadarshi.
Okay, any other answer?
I guess since it was so short, he expected that people will have doubts, and so somebody will try to explain it.
Okay, very nice. Anything else?
Panini has, in a very concise form, he's taken a lot of matter and he's put it into short sentences. So for laymen to understand, that is because he wanted people to be able to memorize everything so that they are short. But
Okay,
to be able to understand what is there in the short sutra, obviously Vyakhya is necessary. So,
okay,
Vyakhya, he himself would have read several Vyakhya before he came up with these concise sutrani.
okay, okay. Very
So,
nice.
obviously,
Okay, very nice
nobody
approach.
can, because definitely students cannot remember the entire explanation. So, he made them in such a way, and he's used some terms also which just stick in your brain. So, that is for memorization. To
Sure.
understand what you have memorized, definitely Vyakhya will happen. He would have known. He himself
Okay.
would have explained verbally in his day and age also.
Exactly. That is the precise point. Why do we think that Panini did not have his own Vyakhya? If you're creating your own grammar today, would you just end up in writing 4,000 cryptic sutras and that's it? Won't you even care about writing your explanation for them? You would. So there is a strong evidence that Panini had his own Vyakhya on all these sutras, which is unfortunately not preserved in the time. But I mean, why would he say that I am writing just cryptic sutras and there is somebody else who is coming after whatever 200, 400 years and he will write explicit bhashya on it and go and refer to it? That's nonsense. Nobody will say that. Okay, so he himself had Vyakhyas. There were multiple acharyas at that time. They themselves might have commented on that. So it is absolutely possible that he said that these are cryptic sutras and my Vyakhya follows. And if you have a question, don't think that I'm an idiot. Go to my Vyakhya and see it. So that's first thing. Second, more important point on this is that this is all our analysis. Panini never says Vyakhyanato Vishesha Pratipattir Nahi Sandehada Lakshanam. This statement is from the Bhashyakara. So you imagine that Bhashyakara says that Panini has said Ayuna and Lana. Panini means that if there is an ambiguity, refer to the Bhashyam, and here is the Bhashyam. So it is like a self advertisement done by the Bhashya based on some evidence from Ashtadhyayi, which was written a few hundred years ago. So we never really know the real reason why Panini wrote Ayuna and Lana. Maybe there was some other reason. Maybe it was actually obtained from Maheshwara like that. Maybe there is some complex music theory around it. We have absolutely no idea. All that we know is there was a work Ayuna and Lana. Bhashyakara said that this is because of resolving ambiguity through the Vyakhyanas, and here is my Vyakhyana. So it's like an advertisement of your own work by saying that Panini has justified it. So this is other way of looking at it. The third way of looking at it is Bhashyakara is essentially, because he's writing his own Vyakhyana, he's essentially putting a stone for all other Vyakhyanas also. So this particular Vyakhyana to Vishesha Prati does not, get limited to the Mahabhashyam. Now that Bhashyakara has put forth it, it goes all the way till Kashika and then Kayyata and Nagesha and Kaumudi and bunch of other folks ahead.
So it is quite possible that just like the Vartikas don't exist by themselves today, they are kind of merged into the Mahabhashyam. Some bit of Panini's Vyakyanas also would be part of the present day Mahabhashyam that is available to us.
That is quite possible. One needs to do research on it. I have not actually heard any of that. So regarding Vartikas, there is a strong evidence that Vartikas are part of Mahabhashyas. We have lots of evidence in the manuscript, but I have not heard of any such evidence where Panini's original Vyakhya is also a part of Mahabhashya that we find today. But it is definitely true that Panini had his own Vyakhyas. In fact, Panini used to invite people at his house. He used to feed them so that they would come and learn from him. So that's the reason there is a popular phrase, Odana Priyaha Paniniyaha. Those who like the rice come to Panini's house for eating the rice. Any other question?
And he
Uh,
also would have studied other grammars before he wrote his own, right, Mahodaya? So
oh yeah, of
there,
course. He has the names of 10 different Vyakaranas in his work. So, of
so
course,
that
I mean.
also would have had Vakyas. And my other question is, here we are questioning why in Maheshwara Sutra there is a Nakara used twice, right? Not in Ashtadhyayi. And we
Correct.
already,
So correct. So there is again a debate on whether he actually got them from Shiva or whether he himself created them and attributed to Shiva. So there are both the pakshas, and there is no definite answer on it. I mean,
okay.
looking at, listening to a sound of drum or whatever, dhakka, and thinking it is Ayuna Ruluka and all that, people question on the authenticity of that particular aspect. I don't. People. So there are both kinds of people around. Some say that is just like you dedicated to Maheshwara. Some say that it actually came from Maheshwara. So,
Yeah, like
but yes,
whenever
in that case, yeah, you are questioning the what he heard from Maheshwara. That's correct.
So can we say that if suppose he got it from Maheshwara, so that means he didn't plan the whole of Ashtadhyayi itself, right? It would have just been revealed to him or something like that.
No. Ashtadhyayi is a different matter altogether. Only the 14 Shiva Sutras have been revealed to him. 14 Shiva Sutras are just the rearrangement of the alphabet. It's nothing more than that. It's just like instead of like Kakha Gaganga, he rearranges the alphabet so that he can make concise forms. Even to be very honest, even without Maheshwara Sutras, he might be able to create his own sutras and write Ashtadhyayi for them around them. So Maheshwara Sutras is just like a trigger point for him to start the whole discussion, is what historians say. So we are not into grammar territory right now. It's all history that we are discussing. But yeah, that's how people believe.
yeah, like I'm thinking when we don't want to question something, that's when we say it's from the supreme soul or something like that. So
Correct, exactly. So there could be tactics, right? Right. I mean, he had his own work, and he needs to prove to see. At the time of Panini, there must be some 100 other scholar grammarians. Panini needs to prove himself. So he needs to prove that his work is better than others. How would he do that? Maybe one way is to say that this I got this from Maheshwara. You never know. So there could be various tactics used employed by people. So.
Mother,
Mahodaya, are
uh,
you, I mean, in the modern days, was there any research on this? Why two ends?
Significant amount of research. So there
And
is in field of Sanskrit, there are actually two streams. One is the traditional Pandits stream who specifically believe on what these traditional commentators say. The second stream of people is like modern researchers who actually look at the manuscripts and try to question everybody, starting with Bhashakara. So the primary name in all this list is S.D. Joshi, who is like, we call him as modern Panini. He's no more, but we call him as modern Panini. We have George Cardona, we have Madhav Deshpande, Saroja Bhate. So there are a lot of big names, Paul Kiparsky, which are actually actively working in this field of looking at manuscripts and finding the what really it was, looking at everything very critically rather than just blindly believing that. So that's actually completely opposite of this paribhasha. Vyakyana to visheshapatti sande nahi sandehad lakshanam. They actually have a sandeha all the way from beginning of Mahabhashya, that is Mahabhashya actually composed the wholly by Patanjali? That's a very basic question that they start with, and they have their own reasons to believe otherwise. So this is a field of very big field in modern research of Indology, which is traditionally on the other side of the the traditional way how this field is looked at.
Mahodaya, one more question. So the other grammarians, right, before Panini's period, so they never used anything like a Maheshwara Sutra, like that usage is not seen in there, right?
Oh, wait. We do not have grammars of any, or not even a single grammarian before the Panini. So we don't know how their grammars look like. We have grammars from people after Panini, and they do have Maheshwara Sutras in them. In fact, this is a very interesting question. I'm digressing a little bit, but it's worth it. There is a grammar called Saraswati Kantabharanam on our website. I don't know if you have seen it. This is the grammar written by Bhoja Raja. It is written in some 11th 12th century. It is a significantly bigger grammar as compared to Ashtadhyayi. But look at the Pratyahara list, or look at the Shiva Sutra list. Ayuna Ruluka Ayong Ayoj Hayavaralan. So he rearranged the Pratyahara slightly, the Shiva Sutras slightly, and he gets rid of the Hayavarat completely, ending in 13 Shiva Sutras rather than 14 Shiva Sutras. And he has his own justifications on it. It's like nobody learns Saraswati Kantabharanam these days because nobody even learns Panini these days. What? Forget about Saraswati Kantabharanam. So, but there are people, I mean, there are people who do some significant research specifically on post Paninian grammar systems, which Saraswati Kantabharanam is one of them. So, there are different ways. I mean, you can have different grammars with different kinds of Shiva Sutras, or different kind of initial Varana Sutras is what you can call in the beginning. This is a very simple, very nice example. He combines Hayavarat and Land to make Hayavaran Land. Even in our Shiva Sutras, when we go ahead, we are going to see this. So, this one, I think. Yama Gadanam and Jabhai. There is a discussion of combining these two Shiva Sutras in a single Shiva Sutra, Yama Gadana Jabhai. We'll talk about that when we come to Yama Gadanam. We'll talk about it. So,
Mother, who
yes,
came up
yes, Ji.
with who came up with that karika that sutrani are asandigdham?
I do not know about that. It's a
So then,
long, like age-old karika.
astu. But thing is that we're saying that there is so much of sandeha in it, probably even introduced by Panini. So then, why would we kind of go ahead and say that the sutrani are asandigdham?
Because if you zoom out and if you look at general literature on the sutras, how a sutra should be, if you're constructing sutras, and this is not related to Panini sutras, it can be Brahma sutras, it can be Vedanta sutras, it can be sutras in Ayurveda, anything else. If you are an author of the sutras, what are the guidelines for you to create the sutra? It should be Asandigdha, it should be Saravat, it should be Vishwatomukham, and so on. It doesn't mean that out of say 2000 sutras that you create, every sutram will fit in that category. But on an average, this is the guideline that you must stick to when you're creating sutras. Okay.
And it also doesn't mean that all of Panini Sutranis are without Sandeh.
So everything has an exception. So it definitely does not mean any of these things. There are sutras that Bhashyakara himself rejects. There are sutras that Bhashyakara himself does a yoga vibhaga. So original sutra is, so many of you, have at least memorized 1.1, right? So uyaha u occurs all the way at the beginning of 1.1. Uyaha u, that was actually originally one sutram in Ashtadhyayi. Panini's version is what people believe. Mahabhashyakara separated them, and now we just give them different numbers. Uyaha is a separate sutram and U is a separate sutram. So the changes happen. We just take some of them and we go ahead.
Mahodaya, just out of curiosity, this Saraswati Kanthabharanam, there are also only those within those 44 pratyaharas what they will use. Is it like they
So
won't go
because there is no t, he won't use a t at all. So he has to find a different way of writing Atkupwangnum Vyavayepi. Atkupwangnum Vyavayepi had t in it. Now he does not have a t. He has hayavara lan. He cannot say Anukupwangnum Vyavayepi because yesterday we saw that it will cause problems for words like Pushkala or Ramala and so on. We saw this in the previous class, right? So he has to find a different way. So the way, if you want, I can reveal what he does. The way he does is that he uses a negation. So he says Sarvatra nakarasya nakaraha bhavati. When there is a ref or sh, Sarvatra nakarasya nakaraha bhavati. Parantu लकारस्य व्यवधानमस्ति चेत् न भवति तथा च यर् प्रत्याहारस्य व्यवधानमस्ति चेत् न भवति. So he negates it. He says everywhere except for the remaining part. So he uses you understand what I'm saying, right? So he uses some kind of tricks to bypass that r pratyahara everywhere. So t letter everywhere. So atoti nityam, there is also at used. So he'll bypass that in some way.
he is still staying within the boundaries of those 44 pratyaharas is what I'm asking. Like, did he create a new pratyahara that we haven't studied in Ashtadhyayi?
I don't think so. I have not gone over. He has some 6,000 sutras. I have not gone over all of them, but I have not read anything about it. If that would have been the case, people would have immediately pointed it out.
Just I wanted to say this with reference to what was discussed earlier about the Karika or something. Alpaksharam Asandigdam should be read together. Just because it is Alpaksharam, sutras cannot be simply made in a manner that nobody is clear about what is being said. It's so obvious. That Asandigdam is so obvious. We need not question it at all. And nobody makes a sutra with the idea that let there be this way or that way, let anybody go to here. No. And we should have the belief in those things. And after all this, where is the Sandeha happens? Sandeha happens in the minds of others, not in the mind of Panini. Panini is very crystal clear in his mind. So if you have a Sandeha, yes, such a type of items will be dealt with in the Vyakarana.
That makes total sense. Yes. So he uses ayuna and lana, and then he says that if there is a sandeha, it has to be found out from the vyakhyanas. Sumanji, you had to ask something.
Yeah, so you said that here they use all that sarvatra bhavati natvam, but except for lakara and yar. But how can he negate yar?
What yar? Yeah,
Sorry.
this guy. Yeah, this guy. So
Oh,
he doesn't use the yar pratyahara. He uses some other way. Tu, and chu. He uses chu, tu. I can show you the sutram. You seem to be more interested in
no.
Saraswati
Because this is
Kantabharanam.
like
See, chu, tu, la, sharvyavaye na bhavati is what he's saying. So cha, ta, ta, la, and shar vyavahe. Somewhere is this one or somewhere else. Rashrubhyam. So rashru is Rashrubhyo vyavahitasyapi samanapade nonaha. So he basically says na will get converted to na, and there is no reference to atkupwangnum vyavayepi at all. I'll show you the exact sutram. So Rashrubhyo vyavahitasyapi samanapade nonaha, and somewhere later on he will get this. This is one. This is one. Chu tu tu shal vyavahe na bhavati. It's very close to this guy. Where did we see? Here. Some 20-25 sutras later, he'll negate that. Okay. Okay.
But
Yeah,
both
the
of
reason
these,
I asked is because, we all take those for granted and think that that's the only way to kind of express it. But when somebody comes up with a creative way of expressing it in a totally different format, that was like that's interesting. How did he do it?
So one should do this kind of exercise at least once
Yes.
in their life, because they will be able to get so much insight in the grammar that you will not get by reading the commentaries. Right? So for example, I always tell this, that try to rearrange the Maheshwara Sutras to get rid of an extra hakara. Why there are two hakaras over there? Get rid of extra hakara, try 10 times, you will fail, and then you will get a different insight in the Maheshwara Sutras, which you will never get by just reading the Vyakhyanas. So yes, there are going to be different ways, and studying these will actually open up our eyes into a different world altogether. Jagdishwar ji, you had a question.
so these two sutras, what you have just shown, so the basically leads to the same conclusion what Panini Sutram, right?
Exactly. Obviously, I mean, the Saraswati Kantabharanam is a grammar of Panini's, is a grammar of the same language that Panini has created grammar for. So eventually, all paths will lead to the same format. It's just different way of expressing it. So the study of how the same thing has been expressed by multiple scholars is also a very fascinating study. Like how the same concepts gets expressed in different types of grammar. I'll give you a very simple example, as we are digressing, but this is very interesting. You have, I don't know if I told you this ever, but there is this asa dhatu, right? Everybody of us knows asti, staha, santi. Now, if you look at the forms of asa dhatu, let's restrict to lat lakara. Asti, staha, santi, asis, staha, stha, asmi, swaha, smaha. Look at these forms. Only the first forms, the ekvachana form, actually have an a over there. Asti, staha, santi. A goes away in both other. Asi, staha, stha. There is no a. Asmi, swaha, smaha. So what Panini does is Panini creates a dhatu called asa, and then for dvivachanam and bahuvachanam he gives a sutram that will get rid of akara, so that you have forms like staha and santi. Other grammarians, what they have done, for example, Jainendra, what he has done is he gives a dhatu called sa. If you look at his dhatu patha, the dhatu is called sa. And then in ekavachanam, he will give an adagam over there, so that it will be asti and then stahasanti, asi and then stahastha, asmi and then swasma. So same problem can be targeted in completely different ways. One place Panini, the way Panini treats it is treat it as asa as the dhatu and get rid of a. Other grammarian treats it by treating sa as the dhatu and add an a. So same conclusion can be achieved by multiple different ways. People have their own choices, and eventually everything is in the brain, right? When you employ the word Ramaha asti, you don't think whether it's an adagama happening or whether it's an herb getting removed or whatever. You don't think any of those things. So grammar is basically a simple game that is happening in the minds of linguists. So you can do it in any way as long as the final word that you are coming to is the same. Okay, too much digression. Anything else? Yes,
I
Umaji.
have, uh, is there any significance in the choice of Itsanyaka Varnas? We have K, Ak, Nga, Cha, Ta.
So that's a very good question, and I have not read anything about it. So why does he say Ayuna and Rulukka? So why does he
Ah,
choose Ka over there? People say there are some reasons in the music theory, but it's all like hypothetical. Nobody has come up with any conclusion, any evidence specific about it. Maybe it's random. We never know. So there has been no conclusive discussion on this.
thank you.
Any other questions? So let's read this part. अयुण तथा लण उभयत्र महर्षण नकारः एव किमर्थं स्थापितः? नाउ यू शुड बी एबल टू अंडरस्टैंड दिस. अत्र नकारस्य द्विवारं प्रयोगं कृत्वा महर्षिः सन्देहं जनयित्वा he explicitly creates a doubt. एतद् ज्ञापयति यत् सूत्रपाठे कुत्रचित् सन्देहः भवेत् तत्र व्याख्यानानां साहाय्येन सन्देहस्य समाधानं करणीयम्. सन्देहवशात् सूत्राणामेव असाधुत्वं न प्रतिपादनीयम् इति. अत एव नागेशेन परिभाषेन्दुशेखरे व्याख्यानतो विशेष प्रतिपत्तिर्न संदेहाद लक्षणमिति परिभाषा पाठ्यते. लण् सूत्रस्थः णकारः अस्याः ज्ञापकरूपेण तत्र उदाह्रियते. The ण present in the learn is used as a jnapaka that Panini requires us to refer to the vyakyanas. अग्रे गच्छामः. So तत्र लण् इत्यस्मिन् सूत्रे अकारः अपि इत्संज्ञकः स्वीक्रियते. So we discussed this in the previous class. Let's discuss it again. तत्र विद्यमानः अकारः इत्संज्ञकः स्वीक्रियते. तस्य किं प्रयोजनमिति चेत् र प्रत्याहारस्य निर्माणम्. Whether R is really a pratyahara or not, there is a significant debate on it. I'll just mention two things without going in further details because, as somebody mentioned in one of the previous classes, we have separate discussions on R pratyahara khandanam, R pratyahara mandanam, and so on. So Bhashyakara never explicitly uses the R pratyahara anywhere. He says that I will tell you about R pratyahara. R pratyaharasya vishay vakshate is a kind of statement that he uses, but he never explicitly states that there is a R pratyahara. We also have a vartika in the Uran Raparaha Sutram itself. Lapara iti vaktavyam is a vartika. If you take that vartika, then Uran Raparaha, the R present in Uran Raparaha does not need to be a pratyahara at all. You can just treat it as a single letter R, and then how to justify cases for L like Tavalkara and so on, you use this vartikam over here. There is yet another justifying evidence why people believe that R pratyahara should not really exist. There is a sutram called Atol Rantasya. Understand this sutram. Atol Rantasya is a sutram. What this sutra has, we don't need the meaning of this sutra, but look at the way this sutram is constructed. La ra antasya. Rantasya is la ra antasya. Now, why in this sutram Panini explicitly refers to la and ra separately? If Panini wanted a ra pratyahara, he could have just said ato rantasya, and the ra pratyahara would mean ra and la together. But he does not use a ra pratyahara over here. He says la ra antasya. So this is taken as a very strong evidence that ra pratyahara is not at least meant by Panini. Later grammarians added it, not added it is a different discussion. Whether Panini really meant of ra pratyahara, probably not. And then in Uran Raparaha, he just missed it out. Like Ru, for example. He said Rashabhyam and he missed out Ru. So in the same way, in the Uran Rapara, he missed out Lo. Or maybe the example that we talk about is hypothetical anyway. Tavalkaraha. So maybe he did not care enough to talk about that example. So these are various, aspects by which people say Ra Pratyahara is not needed. There are other aspects, other side of the coin where they say Ra Pratyahara is actually necessary. In the introductory classes of Laghu Siddhanta Kaumudi, we do take Ra as a Pratyahara and we proceed. So all this is only for advanced level. In the current classes, you can just say Ra is a Pratyahara and go ahead. Any questions on Ra Pratyahara or Lana Sutram in general?
So
who is this?
If there is a pratyahara with just ra and la, then why couldn't it have been run? Why kind of make that convolution that o after in lan is for not for ucharanam, but it's samyaka varnaha and everything else. If there is it because Panini doesn't use the pratyahara run anywhere?
So the point is that it's to be taken as a reverse way, that if Panini really wanted a ra pratyahara that included ra and la, he should have used rana, is what people say.
Okay.
Why doesn't he use rana, but why does he create a completely off the track, off the beat pratyahara by taking a of lana? So then people, including Nagesha, so Nagesha eventually disproves of the Ra Pratyahara completely. So when I say people, it's not the modern researchers. People in the traditional sequence of commentaries, they question on this particular aspect, that these are the things, as you mentioned, it should have been Rana Pratyahara. Why does he explicitly use an as an Itsamnyaka letter over there? So these are various questions that make people believe that Ra is not the part of Ra Pratyahara, is not the part, is not what Panini intended, and it has been added by later grammarians. And then there could be theories on the other side. I have not got time to dig into the other theories, what, why they, how they refute all these aspects, and how they maybe one commentator started and then it just got, it was easy, so it just started following. So we never know.
To a question previously asked, I think Bhagini, in regard to the grammarians prior to the Panini, did I hear that there were no grammarians?
No, there was no work of their grammarians have been preserved. So there were definitely grammarians before Panini, because Panini himself says Lopas Shakalyasya.
Exactly,
So
exactly.
Triprabhutishu Shakatayanasya. So he has names of 10 different grammarians in Ashtadhyayi. So there were grammarians before Panini, but none of those have been preserved.
Oh,
In fact, on Ashtadhyayi, even before the Mahabhashyam, there was a Vyakyana, or there was, I think, a separate Grantha called Sangraha, which is a very well-known book at that time, which is not preserved anymore. So you see a reference of Sangraha in the Bhashya here and there, but Sangraha was supposedly one of the even bigger and more established granthas on Ashtadhyayi or on Sanskrit grammar in general, which is not available today. So yeah, there were a lot of work before Panini also, and before Bhashyakar also.
When out
Anything
of
else?
the 1,000 Samashakas, only 3 are left today, one can't imagine what is the volume of grammar books, granthas that we have lost.
That is unfortunate. Yeah, it is true. I mean, it's questionable, isn't it? Panini, if you see the chronology, Panini was in 600 BC and Bhashyakara was in 200 BC. Nobody wrote anything for 400 years for Ashtadhyayi. I mean, this is questionable. You don't believe this, right? Not just that, we believe that there have been multiple books, none of them got preserved. So you see discrete timelines. 600 BC is Panini and 400 BC is Katyayana. So 200 years people did not know that Ru also does anatvam along with Ra and Sha. And do we have to wait for 200 more years for Vartikakara to come and say Ru Varnat Nasyanatvam Vacham? That sounds a little stupid. So obviously there were things, some got preserved, some did not get preserved. So specifically about Vartikakara, people believe that Panini and Vartikakara were classmates, were rivals, or whatever. There is at the same time. So there is another stream of thought that believe that Katyayana and Panini were at the same time, but mostly people don't accept that theory. Samapayamaha. If there are no questions, we can stop today and we will continue with Yamagananam in the next class. Any last thoughts, questions, comments?
If I may be allowed to digress, when they say Mahabhashyam is written by Patanjali, is he the same Patanjali who wrote the Yoga Sutras also?
So we don't know. There is a
That's
Mangala
debatable.
Charanam that, yeah, there is a Mangala Charanam that we do three things: yogena chittasya padena vachaha malam
Yes,
sharirasya cha vaidyakena.
exactly.
So even the
Exactly.
same Patanjali, we attribute three granthas. We don't know if it's the same one or not. Okay, so for example, Bhartruhari, he wrote Vakyapadiyam. There was another Bhartruhari, he wrote Niti Shatakam Shatakatrayam. We don't know even if it's the same Bhartruhari who wrote all these things. Samapayamaha. हीनाक्षरसमाम्नायम् अधिगम्य महेश्वरात् कृत्स्नं व्याकरणं प्रोक्तं तस्मै पाणिनये नमः। वाक्यकारं वररुचिं भाष्यकारं पतञ्जलिं पाणिनिं सूत्रकारं च प्रणतोऽस्मि मुनित्रयं। नत्वा सरस्वतीं देवीं शुद्धां पुण्यां करोम्यहं पाणिनीयप्रवेशाय लघुसिद्धान्तकौमुदी।